Hey guys, I want to welcome everybody to today's conversation with Tami. She is a former nurse that is transferred into the medical sales world, and so we want to share her story for those of you out there that are wanting to do the same thing. She's got some great insights and is now a very successful medical sales rep and doing what we can to share her story and to help others that want to do the same thing. So Tami, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's really an honor to be asked these questions and to have the opportunity to pay forward what I learned and what people helped me with when I was first starting this journey. So,
yeah, well, awesome. You're a local sales rep. You're a former nurse or a member of the Lobby network. It's been incredible to watch you already networking with other sales reps and current nurses that are interested in your field. Tell us a little bit about just who you are, your history as a rep, where you are currently working in your territory right
now. So currently I work for Karl Storz Endoscopy, which is a primarily video supported company. And I cover the anesthesia and emergency airway intubation equipment. This is equipment that's used in the emergency rooms, the operating rooms, the ICUs, peds, adults. I have customers that are helicopter rescue units, EMS units, ambulatory centers, ORs, dental offices, plastic surgery centers. We're pretty much anywhere a patient could go to sleep and there's a risk, my equipment can be used there, and to include integrating into the video capabilities of an operating room.
So you're all over the place. You got lots of call points,
Yeah.
Much different world. You know, when we first met, you were working in the OR, right? You were at the hospital. I was in surgery as the sales rep. You're an incredible tech, a great nurse. You know, what changed for you, and when in your career did you decide to try and make the transition, or to make the transition into medical sales, and why was that?
So interestingly, I was a surgical tech. That was my first degree in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I worked at Cape Fear Valley Medical Center, and we did a lot of trauma there. So I took neuro call, ortho call, trauma call. We did basically everything. And as a surgical tech at a school there, you were trained as a first assist as well. So I learned a lot very quickly in many different specialties, and I loved it. But what I soon realized was that other than taking call or moving to a CVOR or something like that, there wasn't a lot of growth opportunity for me. I was at a point where there's always something to learn at surgery, and it's fascinating and you learn something new every day. But as far as upward movement, it's like cross your fingers, the hospital got, extra money to give you a little pay raise that year, especially working for a community or nonprofit. And I just wanted a challenge. I wanted the opportunity to kind of bridge my previous background in B2B sales along with my healthcare. So I explored different opportunities and started my bachelor's degree in healthcare administration with bachelor's of science, actually. And then worked through that over the next 4 years. And when I graduated, I started looking at medical device sales opportunities.
Awesome. So, and I'm the same way. So I come from an education background. I was a teacher, coach, and, I got stuck in that Excel spreadsheet, right? You go to years experience, degree level, and you're stuck in that little Excel box, right? If you would. And I think that's common for a lot of people that have that drive that, hey, I want an opportunity to be able to sell and work hard and be compensated for it, right? I think some of these positions that are salary, you kind of get stuck in that salary position where you want to work harder and earn more. And we get a lot of people that want that, right? So medical sales is this great industry that we all love, but it's so hard for so many to make that transition. And you were able to do that. You're able to go from nursing to medical sales. And I know, there were several people at a recent networking event of ours at the Lobby where we've got nurses that want to make that transition. So tell us a little bit about how you made that transition and any advice to a nurse that you may give looking to make that transition.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really exciting. And, medical device sales in general is really hard to get into. Everybody knows they always want you to have experience, which you can't have unless you get the job. And then you want to have certain healthcare backgrounds or knowledge, but again, you have to have experience to get that as well. So it can be definitely really complicated. I will say when I did my bachelor's degree, these, for those who haven't done that yet, because a bachelor's is required for most medical device sales jobs, unless you have 5 to 7+ years experience. I did really focus on a bachelor's of science. And the reason I did that was because much of my clinical education was able to transfer into my bachelor's degree. So it actually saved me some time when I decided to pursue a bachelor's degree. And then when I went to my interviews and talked about myself in a medical device sales position, I really focused on, I have a bachelor's of science. I'm a clinical professional. I can relate to these physicians and other clinical areas from, on the same level as them. That's my background. That's what I've studied since I've started as a surgical tech, and then also focused that on my bachelor's degree as well. And that really helped me there. And then, the biggest thing was also, or not biggest, but another really important avenue was networking. When I decided that I wanted to go into medical device sales, I started talking to the reps I worked with. I think you were one of them. And I talked to some of the reps I worked with, and I said, hey, what's going on in the field? This is what I'm looking at. At the time, I was specialized in thoracic surgery, cardiothoracic surgery, urology, and robotics. Those were the main areas that I was focused in every day as a surgical tech, and then also training as a certified first assistant. So immediately I looked at Intuitive robotic surgery. They weren't hiring in my area, but they had a sales associate position available, which I explored, but they, again, ended up picking somebody with experience. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in May, and it wasn't until the following year in June that I actually got a job. It took me a year, and I was applying constantly online every night. I looked at so many different companies and positions. I had 3 interviews in 1 year, 3. And it finally took, I actually paid somebody to rewrite my resume for me, a lot of money. Mm-hmm. It wasn't inexpensive, because I had to go from a clinical to a sales position, and my resume was tailored completely for clinical. So I needed to really think, okay, what do I do? I need help here. I also reached out to a couple people that I knew that worked for different manufacturers that were in higher level positions. These are directors, vice president type positions that maybe weren't hiring for their companies, but could give me, hey, Tami, when you're putting your resume together, when you get to that interview, here's your next step. Follow these 30, 60, 90-day plans, write that out, focus on your clinical expertise. And that really helped me. But the network, what really got it for me was I was telling people I wanted to go into medical device sales. I finally gave up on the fact that people are at work. I was trying to keep it secret, right? You don't want everybody to know you're looking for another job. But then after a while, people knew I was doing my bachelor's degree because I was often studying in the break room. So, they knew I was going to school for something else. It wasn't a secret. And I finally just told my manager, this is what I'm looking for. And I talked to the reps that worked for Carl Stores. And I said, hey, I saw there was a position posted. I applied, sent it to the recruiter, followed up with the recruiter. I haven't heard anything back. Is there anybody else I can follow up with? It's for anesthesia, emergency airway. I specialize in thoracic cases. I mean, this is a perfect fit for me. Who can I follow up with? And they actually went and talked to the regional manager and said, hey, Tami, we can get you a call with the regional manager. Do you want to speak to him? And I was like, yes, of course. Yeah. And he called me that afternoon and told me right away on the phone, he loved clinical people because clinical people were able to relate to physicians and clinical patient care, employees on all levels. This is sterile processing. This is, management, materials, your nursing staff, your hospital physicians, your patient care transport, everybody. We're able to relate literally to everyone in that hospital. And he loved that. So he did a phone interview with me. That interview, he told me he was going to fly down in 2 days, meet me face-to-face. At the face-to-face interview, he decided he was going to fly me to California to meet the director and the VP of sales, which I did 2 days later. Before I left California, they called me when I was in the airport and said, we're offering you the job. You just got to pass the background check. And I was like, oh my God. And it happened. I was like, oh my God, this is happening.
I did it.
It's like years at the airport, a year. I had an interview with a pharmaceutical company, which wasn't really where I wanted to go because it is very demanding, a lot of travel. But I was like, anything I can do to get in. And she loved me. It was great, except the initial employee training and orientation was going to take place over my daughter's high school graduation.
Hmm.
So I didn't get the job because my daughter's high school graduation was right in the middle of the new employee training. And they
Oh,
only did it once a quarter. And there was I would have, they needed somebody to come in and fill that position. So
yeah. Well, congratulations on making the transition. I know you are a family
thanks.
first person, and I definitely want to get into that. But before we move on, a few things that I'm hearing, I just want to reiterate. One, it takes time, right? It took me a year of interviewing and applying and all those things. That it takes time. So I try to always remind people that are trying to get in an industry, give it some time. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. Right? You're going to have to put your time into it. And that's the same way with the sales, right? It's going to take time to build your territory. A few things to summarize there as far as nurses, right? Bachelor's of Science, right? Something that's really important that you're going to have to need to play on your clinical experience, right? These roles don't get defeated by that B2B requirement. There are a lot of companies that'll take value or see value in that clinical experience and use that to your advantage. I think it's amazing you found a company that was open to that and saw that and see the value in you. And then third, networking, right? It's huge. This industry is about who you know and not what you know. It is a huge networking industry. And that's why we've created the lobby to open up those doors a little bit, because for a long time, it's been like this walled off castle that just seems impossible to get into. So by creating networking events, people can connect and have those conversations. And the fourth thing, resume. I love that you invested in yourself, saw the need there and say, hey, I need to take my clinical resume and turn it into a medical sales resume. And we've got a course called Medical Sales Breakthrough, where we walk people through, A to Z, exactly what you need to break into sales. And that is like one of the 5 chapters that we spend on is your documents, right? You mentioned your business plan, your cover letter, your resume. You've got to build these documents and tailor them to medical sales. I think you hit some incredible points there. And that's just great advice for someone, especially a clinician trying to make that transition into medical sales.
That's great. And thank you. And to your point, Kenny, I mean, there's so many ways that you can take your clinical expertise, which everybody has. If you're in a clinical environment, you are an expert at something. It's sterile technique. It's training other employees. It's hooking up a Bovie pad and knowing how to do it. It's troubleshooting a stapler in the middle of an emergency, hooking up IV tubing. Those types of things are expertise for you when it comes to this type of industry that you can bring that other people that don't have clinical background can bring.
Yep. Completely agree. So I'm interested. So you spend all this time, right? You just invested a year of your life into getting into this industry. You finally get through, right? You break down in the airport, you're so excited. And now the hard part starts, right? Now you've got to sell, right? Now you've got to make that transition from, working in the OR, that salary job, to, I would assume now you've got a quota, right? Now you've got sales training. Now you're calling on surgeons. So walk me through kind of that first year, that transition from a clinical role to now I've got to put my sales hat on and become a medical sales rep. What was that like?
Well, I'm still doing it. three years in, I would say that you're always, the industry changes constantly. Your role changes constantly. So you're always learning. But that first year, what I really focused on more than anything was just customer support. Yep. I know personally for me, my brand loyalty to anything, whether it's toilet paper, my cell phone, whatever it is going to come 100% from customer support. So I figured the best way for me to learn my customers, understand the sales industry, learn how to navigate through a hospital was to just walk in and tell them that I'll tell you what I said. This is what I would do. I would walk in and I would say, hey, my name's Tami. The new airway rep for Carl Stores. I'm trying to learn and understand what my customers' needs are and learn my territory. Can you show me your current equipment so I can just check it out and familiarize myself with what you have?
Wow.
That's what I did. And
Wow.
I'd find little things like, their software needed to be updated. We don't charge for that, but their software needed to be updated. Or maybe, they carried one type of intubation equipment, but not the other type. And then while they're showing it to me, one of their techs or one of their physicians might say, oh, hey, we have a problem with this, or do you guys have these capabilities, while I'm talking to them, or, hey, I'm going to need another machine, as a matter of fact, while you're here. But I went in there as a customer support role, to really learn my customers, understand what they needed. And it was a great way for me to be more familiar with my own product, because I'm hearing from them the struggles. So I know which questions to ask when I get to my sales training and my tech training.
I love it. I love it. What a great approach. You really went to the customer and said, how can I bring value, right? What are your needs and how can I bring value? I think a lot of people have somewhat of a misunderstanding behind the word sales, right? And they think I got to sell and I got to convince them they got to buy this. When in reality, if you look at what you're doing, you're not pushing anything on them. You're asking them how you can help them, right? How can I support you? What do you need? And ultimately, selling really comes down to asking good questions, right? If you can uncover their needs, right, and then help them with those needs, you're naturally going to bring value and support to the customer, and you're going to develop a great relationship with that customer. And I know you've done that. So what a great approach to it.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. It's been huge. I tell people now, I don't sell, I service. And that's really what I do. I go out and I service, and it's built also a very honorable reputation for me, to where now my customers will speak on my behalf when it comes to administrators, and I'm trying to get contract signs or large deals done. They'll go and they'll say, hey, Tami's not trying to sell us. She's trying to save us money. She's been telling us this for 6 months, that we need to do this because it's going to save us, $2,000 per unit. Yeah. She's been telling us. We could have done it another way. Or, I'll go to them and I'll say, this is your contract. I took these items off because you really don't have an issue with those. I modified it. It's less than what I originally quoted you because it's going to save you money in the long term. Let's talk about it. I found that you get more brand loyalty going in, really, like you said, bringing value to the customer, servicing these customers. And my reputation as an honorable rep has really built up, I think, because of that a little better.
Which is so important in this industry, right?
It is. Because the second you introduce yourself as a sales rep, they're going to start judging you and questioning you.
Immediately, the door starts to close just automatically.
Yeah. What do you want?
I really hear that you partner with your customers, right? You're a true partner, and you're there to support them in their mission to take care of their patients, right? And do what's right for the hospital. So just an absolutely incredible approach to sales and what we do on a daily basis. With that said, tell me a little bit about what it was like, because you would just kind of, as a nurse, you show up to the hospital, you cover your surgeries and then you go home, right? You go into the medical sales world now, and that changes a lot, right? I would imagine you're building your schedule, you're making sales calls, you're doing work at night. Take me through, and I know there's no typical day in our industry, right? Every day is different, but how would you describe or define what your day a typical day in your world looks like as a sales rep now?
Well, usually, sometimes I'm answering emails in the morning before I leave the house. Sometimes I'm leaving the house really early to be in the operating room or to be in an appointment really early. So that, like you said, it fluctuates day to day, but it's usually, you get up, go to your meetings all day long. You're in the hospital, depending on your industry, obviously where, in between cases or in between other things, I might take my laptop to lunch. I try to tell people it's really important to break away, because I didn't do this when I first started. When I first started, I was 100%, oh my gosh, I have to be here. I have to see everybody. I got to meet everybody. I was up till 12:30 in the morning, because you're on the road all day long, in a facility all day long. And then I would stay up till 12:30 in the morning, get up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm exhausted. And then I'm like, okay, this is just, you can only go so long doing that, right? I mean, eventually you're going to crash. You're not going to be as valuable. Your mind's not going to function. And then when you start having these C-level conversations where you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars and you're trying to get people to trust you, you need to be on your game. You need your sleep, you need your rest, you need your health. So what I started to do was, if I go to and this is kind of my day to day, I go to a facility in the morning and I might do 2 hours, in a certain area or different areas. I'll step away and it's exciting for me. I'm in a new city. I'll find some place I haven't eaten lunch at. I'll go to lunch, leave the hospital,
Yeah.
Or wherever, go to lunch, take my laptop, answer some emails, follow up on some customer service issues, maybe make a couple cold calls, set some appointments, and then go back to the facility.
Yeah.
Step away, give yourself a break. Sometimes if you only have a few minutes and you got to fix something, it is nice to sit in the cafeteria, have a little snack at the Starbucks or wherever, do some work. You might run into some people. That's always fun. You might pick up some people while you're sitting in there, but you gotta definitely step away because you'll burn yourself out like really fast.
Absolutely.
But to go back to your original question, I'm straying, but so day to day hospital, I'm usually there for mine because I cover so many different departments. I can be in a hospital anywhere from 2 to 4 to 5 hours. Leave there, it's my furthest territory is 3 hours away, my furthest customer, I guess.
Yep.
So, I'm on the road an average 2,500 to 3,000 miles a month.
Wow.
So you got to use your time wisely in the car. So in the car, I'm usually calling people or calling my company, calling in customer service concerns, following up with people. Also giving myself a break to listen to some music or like a book on tape or something. And then get home, and then I have a family. So I pick my daughter up from school, I have her homework, dinner, those types of things. And then when she goes to bed at around 8 o'clock, I usually jump on the computer, follow up on any other emails I have, customer service issues, any administrative expense reports. There's all these different things that you don't realize you're going to have to do in front of your computer. So that's usually my night. And then I usually try to turn it off by 10:30 now so that I can get some good sleep and rest. I go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week. I don't, for me, that's a stress reliever. If I don't go to the gym, that's part of my routine. I usually go to the gym before I get my daughter. It's a way for me to stay mentally and physically healthy. So that's important.
Especially in this industry. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like you will grind yourself and just wear yourself down, right? It's really easy to do. And I asked that question for a reason, because I think it's important to hear, especially, as we're talking about nurses, maybe they work 7 to 3, right? An OR nurse isn't, 7 to 3, or they're 3/12s or whatever it may be, and then when you leave the hospital, you leave all that at the hospital, right? You're done until you come back tomorrow. And, I be sure to make sure I explain this and almost warn nurses like, hey, this is a different world. This is you're up late working on deals, putting quotes together, returning emails, you're kind of always working to a degree. This isn't something you just shut down and walk away from. So I think it's important to hear the difference in demand around that job. And a lot of people get caught up in the glamour, the financial opportunity behind this industry, and not really understand the amount of work it takes to be successful in this industry.
Absolutely. A lot of people think that medical device sales is all golfing, networking, happy hours, travel, all these things. I travel. But let me tell you something. Usually when I go to the hotel, I've been in that city working all day, and I have to be up at 4:30 in the morning, or else I wouldn't be in the hotel because I could just drive there the next day. Or I'm traveling for a conference or something. So I try to get to the hotel, work out, eat a good meal, go to bed. So I'm on my game the next morning. I mean, there's not a lot of playtime. I was on vacation for a couple of days over spring break. I took my daughter and we drove to Florida. I stopped twice driving. It took me an extra hour because I stopped twice to pull over and do quotes that my customers needed like ASAP. Pulled up my laptop in my front seat of my car and sat there and sent some quotes. I mean, you got to be able to multitask. I will say though, one benefit of coming into this from a clinical expert, like you said, you're used to, whether or not you're on call or you're doing your regular shift in the hospital, you still clock out, right? I mean, even on call, you're aware, but you're at home and you're not really on until you get there. You clock in, you do it, you go home. You may still be on call, but you can rest at home. Like you can shut it off while you're at home. But I will say, I think that clinical being on call, getting called in at 1 a.m. in the morning, snapping your brain awake, going in there, having to deal with trauma or helping patients, it gives you an endurance and it gives you a stamina.
Yep.
That honestly, I think is another benefit from coming from a clinical background, and definitely stress that. When you go to your interviews and you're talking to people and they're like, oh, well, you don't have sales experience. You don't have, how do you handle stressful situations? Dude, I got called in at 1 a.m. in the morning with, I don't want to go into details, but yeah, there's some pretty bad cases, where people aren't really, you're putting them back together. There aren't good things happening. You're not getting called in to an operating room at 1 a.m. in the morning because somebody, has a fever. It's a big deal. And you go in there and you function. It's high stress. You handle yourself around sterility,
Yep.
your communication, your understanding, and you kick butt, you get the job done, and then you get out of there. So stress, for me, I really stress that when I talk to people. When they came at me and they're like, oh, what's your experience with stress? How are you going to handle, talking to physicians? How can you handle the multitasking and the demands of a sales rep? You already do that from a clinical aspect. Your stamina is up here. You just got to focus it differently. You're used to 14-hour days. Now your 14-hour days are actually a little better because I have 14-hour days, but I can take breaks and go to my daughter's, Christmas performance or high school graduation or orchestra performance or golf lessons, and I can go watch her and then finish the work at night.
Right.
So,
right. You kind of work on your time.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's great because, it's a reminder to clinicians that are looking to make that transition. Like, don't get defeated about these requirements of sales experience and some of these things. Like, stay in your power, that you've got some very valuable skills that you're already doing. It's just knowing how to, effectively deliver that in an interview, right? And share that with a hiring manager. You hit you really bring up some good points. You talk about work ethic, endurance, cold calling, your reputation, having, hustle and building trust and servicing customers. I love this question of putting people on the spot, because I know it takes so many different skills and so many different abilities to be successful in this industry. But I'm gonna put you on the spot, and if you had to pick one thing that you think really is a characteristic of a successful sales rep, or what it takes to be successful in this industry, what would you say that is?
I go right back to customer service. Follow up. Your word is everything. And you always have to remember that if you leave whatever company you work for, if you stay in the same city, you're covering the same territory. And don't think for a second that if you leave that city, that's going to be anything different. I mean, there are people that come from Virginia and work in Charleston. There are people from Charleston that go to Minneapolis, and they may be working with a hospital administrator because their field is even harder to get into and smaller than ours. So they may have ran a hospital here and decided, oh, you know what, when I worked with that rep in Charleston, they didn't have their stuff together. They told me they were going to do things and they didn't do it. They didn't follow up. Their customer service was not good. So you just, really maintain that. And I've won deals. I've had directors of biomed. I've had CFOs, talk about me on my behalf and said, oh, you know what, so-and-so over here can maybe save us a little bit of money and it's less expensive. But during COVID, when I needed something and I called Tami, she came here and met me in the parking lot to get me what I needed. Do it. Customer service, number one.
Love it. Love it. I couldn't agree more. I think that's so huge. Putting the customer first, right? Doing what you can to always take care of the customer and do right by the customer, right? Not looking for shortcuts or short wins, and really looking to build a long-term relationship and service that customer. And I have no doubt that's what's really made you successful so early in your career. You talk about something that I do want to ask you about, and that's family, right? You mentioned your daughter several times. You mentioned, getting to her activities and how important that is. And there's different, divisions within medical sales that are more and less time consuming or even time restrictive, right? If you're in the OR, I work on orthopedics and I wear on call and we're in surgery, it's tough to get away and make time for those things. So tell me a little bit about the importance of that and how you balance that, life as a mother, as well as the demands of a sales rep.
Yeah, I really think you hit on the head there. Work-life balance is so important when it comes to any career, but especially this one, like we talked about earlier, it's easy to get head over heels into it and really lose track of it and just dive right in. When it came to making the decision to move to medical device sales, let me just backtrack a little bit. I actually had people tell me, don't do it. You're a single mom. You can't do it.
Yeah.
How are you going to be a mom and take care of your kid? Are you worried about being with your kid? Are you going to hire a nanny? You're a single mom. Who's going to take care of your kid? And then I would talk to people that were in the industry who actually told me to take down my social media because I may be researched by the company and they may see that I'm a mom and might deny interviewing me because of that.
Oh.
I was told that. I was told that because I'm a woman and a mom, completely take down my social media everywhere. And I always have good, positive, supportive stuff. It's nothing crazy, but to take it all down, because if anybody saw that I'm a woman and a mom and a single mom, that might delete my opportunities. I didn't, because why would I want to work for a company that, separated me like that?
Right.
So,
Right.
but I will say that, like, to your point in orthopedics, orthopedics is you're on call. You have to take call a lot. And really finding that work-life balance is so important. You really got to focus on what's important to you, not just now at this time in your life, but maybe 3 to 5 years from now, 10 years from now. For me, because of my background in clinical, the environment that I work in, especially now that I have sales experience, I could transition into another position, either with my own company or with another company that would give me a higher salary, a higher commission rate. I've talked to companies that wanted to offer me $30,000, $40,000 more a year, just salary. And then, the commission structure is different and better, and I could make more money, but I'm still a single mom. And even if I wasn't a single mom, I'm a mother, family's huge to me. Even if you don't have kids, what's your teamwork balance going to be if you're married or you have somebody significant, or somebody that depends on you. I can't be in the OR at 6:45 in the morning, 5 days a week. I don't want to take call every single weekend. I have 2 phones that I keep for a reason, because on the weekends, I can take my work phone and I can set it to the side and just check it every now and then. I don't have to keep it on me. I chose a field and I chose a specialty and I chose a company when I was making my decisions. To not only get into med device, but then to stay where I am currently for the 3 years that I've been doing this.
Yep.
Based on the fact that I can separate my work life from my personal life. I can still be at all those events that are so important to me. The money is great, and it can be great going into different specialties. You can work your way up through the company and become a regional manager, a director, a vice president, which are all great opportunities. But where are you personally at that time? Do you have the support? Do you want to be there for your family? If so, maybe you can sacrifice games on the weekend if you're only taking call 1 weekend a month. Maybe that's something you can sacrifice if you can be there Monday through Friday, the other days picking your kid up from school. But, what's that balance? Is the more money going to be worth it if you have to spend 30 grand a year on a nanny? Now you're just paying somebody else to live the life that you want to live, and you're not really making anything else, and now you're missing time. So, it's really tempting in this field to get to move to something where you can make more money and really go hard at it. But and some people are ready to do that. Depending on your lifestyle. But for me personally, I'm going to pass up some of those opportunities, let's just say, for now, until my daughter's a little older, and kids get older, they don't even want you around that much anymore. So but I enjoy, I pick my daughter up from school most days a week. Every once in a while I have family that help me. I may have to hire a nanny sometimes, or a part-time sitter here and there, but for the most part, I take her to school every morning and I pick her up almost every day. And it's a lot, because I drive the 2.5, 3 hours, do all my appointments, and then I drive back. Some reps who don't have to do that are able to drive. You've done it in your field. You can drive, go away and stay a couple nights, working your way back. You spend a couple nights. You're not on the road as much, but I'm on the road every single day, so that I can be there in the morning. I can be there when she wakes up most days, and I can be there to put her to bed or take part in her activities most nights.
That's incredible. And I think that's so important that you figure out which one's best for you, right? Because there are lots of different ways you can fall under the umbrella of medical sales, right? So looking at it saying, all right, do I want to be the trauma rep that's on call, right? Do I want to be in capital equipment sales that covers an entire state and requires some overnight travel? Do I want to be in pharmaceutical sales or dental sales, or do I want a small territory or a big territory? And I think that's one of the most important things that you figure out early on is, what's going to work for you, right? Because what works for you may be different than works for me and from someone else. So it's important to find that role, figure that out, and really target those roles so that you don't end up in something that doesn't work out for you or doesn't fit your lifestyle. So I'm so glad you've been able to find a position that supports you, your career, but also gives you the ability to take care of your family and be there for those special moments, because you don't get a second chance at them. So that's incredible.
No, thank you. And you know what? Use your resources. Like you and I were doing this Zoom call. I mean, now technology is so great. Maybe you can Zoom conference a couple times, calls, Microsoft Teams. There's lots of ways that you can do things now over the internet and not have to go on the road as much, or use it to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So much good stuff, Tami. This is incredible. If I'm a nurse and I'm listening to you, I'm excited. I've thought a little bit about medical sales. I didn't quite understand it, but now I'm getting excited and maybe even hopeful about my opportunity or potential to break into medical sales. So for the nurse that's listening, that's hearing this, what would you say to them for their journey, or any advice you would give them on making the transition into medical sales?
Oh yeah, so exciting. Well, first of all, don't be afraid that you're going to get rejected or you're going to quote unquote fail, as some people say, because it's going to happen to all of us, right? Whatever your experience is, whatever your background is, it's going to happen. Like I said, it took me a year. You said it took you a year. A lot of people, it takes a lot of time. And I tell my kids this, and it sounds really corny, but I keep it in the back of my head because I tell my kids this: the only failure is quitting.
I love it.
The only way you ever fail at anything is to quit, because rejection is a learning experience. And even if you're not going to win anyways, but what did you learn from that? Take a step back, learn from it. For me, it was, oh my gosh, I need to get my resume rewritten because I'm not even getting emails. I'm not getting calls. I'm not getting anything. What do I do? And then, so to that failure, the only failure is quitting. So don't get beat up by it. You are an expert in what you already do. So focus on that, target it. The other thing is there's a lot of opportunities to break into medical device sales that aren't necessarily sales oriented right away. For example, at Carl Stores, we have something called an on-site endoscopic specialist. We also have field service technicians, and we have video sales associates. These are people that typically come into a company with a strong technical or clinical background. And it isn't always clinical. Sometimes it's computers, sometimes it's something else, but they come in, they're employees of the manufacturer, and they are hired on by the facility, in some cases to work at the facility. So like, for example, Steris does this. They have their own reps that they bring into the facility to handle the cleaning and the processing for a contract that they have for the hospital. I'm sure you're familiar with them.
Yes. Yep.
Well, our endoscopic specialists come in and they're under contract. The hospital pays for them. And they're basically clinical experts. They go around and support the hospital from a clinical standpoint. They work at the facility. They receive in orders. They send out broken things. They can repair stuff on site. They're clinical experts. Now, when a sales position comes open in the company, whether it's in their own territory or somewhere else, most companies are going to pull internally first. So this gives you a way in. As a video sales associate, which ours are VSAs, but other companies like orthopedics and some of these other companies have just sales associates, which are basically, I use the term very lightly, assistants to the sales reps, but they're clinical support basically to the sales reps, because they're experts on the product and the knowledge, and they're there to assist on the territory and maintain that that top level of customer support from a clinical side, where the sales rep is always having to go into like, negotiations or demonstrations, or, the other thing is some of these, another advantage of being a clinical person is a lot of these roles also require in-services. So if you look at some of these sales associate or clinical support experts or hospital support experts, they're also doing a lot of in-servicing. So coming from a clinical background, you're really able to focus on the fact that you've done that. Most likely as a nurse or a surgical tech or some other type of clinical position, you've had the ability to train others on product. And, that's another edge for you. So I would say definitely, if you're having a hard time only focusing on sales, focus on other areas to get you into sales, like those clinical support positions that a lot of manufacturers and a lot of companies offer.
I love it. I two good things there. The only way to fail is to quit. I love that, right? Fail forward, right? Get used to failing and get used to rejection if you're going to be in this industry, right? But don't see it as a bad thing. I think the sooner you can, shift the way and shift your perspective on failing, the quicker you'll be successful in this industry. Failing is not a no. Failing is a no is just one step closer to a yes, right? Yeah. You've got to keep moving forward, right? Just because you didn't get that yes the first time, you got to keep going. And to your point, it took you a year to get into the industry. It took me a year, right? It takes time to get in this industry. So give it that time and find the right role, right? There are a lot of clinical roles out there, for these products. Who better to train a nurse on a product than a nurse that knows how to use it, right? So don't get defeated by these qualifications when you say, requirement 3 years sales experience or whatever it may be. Target the positions that are for clinical reps, and you've got a great opportunity to break into industry that way. I know at Stryker we have robotics now into the OR. Yeah, we're hiring a lot of nurses or former nurses to run those robots, right? It's a clinical job, whether it's, like you said, intuitive, there's robots. So the robotic industry is creating a lot of doorways for clinicians to transfer over into those roles. And then if they decide down the road they want to move over to the sales side, to your point, you said earlier, you're already kind of in the door, right? And once you're in the door, it's a lot easier to transfer over once you're already working for that company. So great advice there for a nurse that's looking to get into medical sales. Thanks.
Yeah, last night at our network, at our lobby meeting, I met a couple perfusionists that are kind of looking at medical device sales. And, for example, for them, I mean, these guys are used to working under high stress in a cardiovascular operating room with vascular surgeons and cardiovascular surgeons. I mean, those are not easy people to work with. It is very intense, high paced. Sometimes you're in surgery 15, 16 hours. I mean, these perfusionists have to be there for those cases. So they are used to that. They have the stamina and they can speak the anatomy, the physiology, the machines, they understand cardiac catheters. They understand all those things. I told them, I said, look at jobs where they're like selling cardiac catheters, where they're doing emergency, vascular cases, because what you bring to that is something way more than what anybody else could bring that's never been in that field. I mean, you understand the terminology, you understand everything that's happening in there, the procedure, everything. I mean, so definitely look for areas that focus on what your experience already is,
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And the products you're already working with, right?
Right.
It's like if you're working in the OR, or if you're working in the ICU, stop and look around. You've got medical products all around you, right? What do you know? Right? What's in your bubble already, or what do you have knowledge around, and target those companies first, right? Those are great companies for you to target clinical roles for, because you already know the product.
Yeah.
I think that's great. So much good stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say, I have a friend who's a sterile processing technician. She did it for years, and she recently started working for BellyMed.
Perfect.
Which is cleaning and sterilizing, products. And she's had that product in her hand for 10 plus years as a sterile processing technician. And now BellyMed hired her to go sell it because she uses it every single day. She knows how it works.
Exactly. Who better to sell it than a clinician that's been using it, for 15 years? So again, don't get discouraged, right? If you're a nurse listening to Tami's story, don't get discouraged by the lack of sales experience. So much good stuff there, right? If I'm a nurse hearing this, there's so many takeaways. It's going to take time, right? Don't give up. It's a journey. Start networking, right? With people that are around you, reps that are around you. Stay in your power, right? Stay in your knowledge of you have experience, you have knowledge, right? You have what it takes to be successful in this industry. You just have to network and find those positions and really target and find the right position for you. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I know you're so busy. You're a mom, you're a sales rep, you've got a lot going on. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy day and sharing your story so that other nurses that are looking to do the same thing can take value and hopefully do the same thing. That's our mission behind the lobby, right? Is to network and help people that are looking to get into the medical sales industry or currently in the medical sales industry. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's an amazing one.
Thanks. I really appreciate the compliment. And thanks for bringing me into the lobby. I mean, it's also just really nice as a current salesperson to be able to talk to people and hear, oh, you guys are having the same problem. Like,
yeah,
it isn't just us. It's not just us. It's you too. Okay, great. I mean, it's really nice. We're so segregated when we're working, right? Because you're just working. Yeah. So it is really, really great to be able to come together and just relate to people in the same industry. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you for supporting it. Thank you for being there. We'll see you at the next event. Best of luck this year with your sales and, being a mother and all that you have going on there with your daughter. So thank you so much.
Take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.